Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode. Let's see here. Social has gone out, and it's great. Hey, Devin, how you doing? Social's gone out on Reddit. Reddit. That's twice. That is twice in a week. I've been like Reddit. There's nothing on Reddit. There's absolutely nothing on Reddit. This year, some people were in Reddit and they were like, "Hey, why don't you post things here?" And I was like, "No one comes."
Yeah, we
And
don't
so
do it.
I posted stuff there for a few weeks, and then I stopped, and no one's complained. So that's why. That's why things aren't in Reddit. I will put it on our Discord channel though, because I almost forgot to do that. So we'll share it with the Discord. And I'll use the here so I get a few less little frog things sent at me. The word now doesn't have a P in it. Send. There we go. All right, let's see who's here. What's going on? Hey, Patrick, what's going on? Sad Panda. Yes, you have reasons to be sad, and I can't wait for Ashley to talk about it. It's gonna be funny. 7 people here. Yeah, no, so the welcome everyone if you're joining us for the first time here for our YouTube stream. Pretty close to being on time. Well, further than I thought. Anyway, Ashley and I were chatting. It happens.
Yeah. What we do.
We are here live pretty much every Monday, as long as that works with the schedules and our schedules and the games and everything. But here every Monday pretty much talking about MLS Fantasy with picks and little recommendations and some reviews and takeaways from the previous round and upcoming rounds. So social is out. Please feel free to like and share and subscribe and hit the bell notification and all those great things that you do for YouTube, because this is the primary format that we use. Maybe we'll see something new next year. We've experimented some this year, but for the time being, YouTube is still fantastic, and we'll still be uploading videos here regardless of what we do. But yes, so what's going on, Scott? So happy everyone could be here. Twitter and Discord, share that social media, and we will see what happens. Have to do it manually now because of the whole Twitter API thing. My buttons don't work on the Stream Deck anymore, so it is what it is. What's up, Chanyo? And all right, I hit the record button. So Blaine will not be with us tonight. He had a whole big thing going on, so it is just Ashley and I who are with you, and look forward to any comments that anyone wants to put in chat during this time. It's always fun to have the interaction. So let's get, there we go, to get my social media stuff ready for the transitions and whatnot. There we go, behind the curtain. Here we go. Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of round 23. This episode is brought to you by Selfies with Fantasy Players, Opportunities Beyond Fandom. Brought to you by the amazing MLS Fantasy Insider patrons, and it's because of you that this project is still going. Thank you so much. You can learn more about our Patreon project at patreon.com/MLSFI. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partner in fantasy, Ashley Savage. How you doing, Ashley?
I'm doing okay. Still emotionally recovering.
I understand. This was definitely an emotional week for both of us.
Yeah, both of us.
Pretty rough.
Beat downs, yeah.
Exactly. Blaine had it lucky being on a bye this week.
Yeah.
So a couple of little updates here at the top of the show. One, things got a little bit weird because of the storm that came through to California. Our thoughts are with you all out there. That did impact some of our posting schedule as well and made some things weird. Still got the Discord player poll out there, but it's definitely a little bit weird. Also with players actually coming in and being added to the game, not all of them ended up where we thought they would be, and one in particular, Ashley?
What?
Did you want to brag about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to. We had a really, tough emotional day in my household after the game last night. And as my husband and I were preparing to leave with our 6-year-old son in tow, throwing a full tantrum, well past his bedtime, I spot Brooks Lennon just standing in the Sounders concourse talking to some sweet-looking older man. And I thought, you know what? I just got my heart and soul shattered by his team. I'm at least going to go say hi to him because he is one of, I'm going to say, top 5 favorite fantasy player for me the last few years. easily in that list.
Definitely lower than Breck Shea, but
yeah, I mean, Breck Shea is number one on my list every week, no matter where he is or isn't currently playing professionally. And yeah, so I've hopped over really quick, apologized for interrupting, and just told him that exact thing, that I play a lot of MLS Fantasy, and he's one of my favorite players, just not today. And he asked if we wanted to take a picture, and I took a quick picture, immediately sent it to Patrick first before anybody else, and then came back to my husband, who said, "What? Who are you talking to?" And I said, "Brooks Lennon." And so he was very lovely and very nice. And what wasn't nice was the 11 points he put up on my team, but still, it was really fun and hilarious to see him just standing around in the, Seattle den. So
it was. Ashley sent us a little picture in our Twitter chat, and it was like, oh, well, interesting. We'll talk about that. You also got to see the debut of Rossi in my game, which I will talk about momentarily, as a midfielder, which answered your prayer. I don't think we've gotten to talk about that since the last broadcast.
I talked about it a little bit in Discord to mixed reviews. Some people were pissed and some people were not. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what karma I had to pull that off. I understand why for some people they don't like it from the point production wise. I mostly just didn't want him listed as a forward because I don't want to pick up him and Cucho. I don't want to waste 2 forward spots, right? You only get 3. So yeah, I have no idea. I didn't send it. You know this. I didn't say anything to Skylar. I didn't say anything. We talked about it, I think, before the show or after too, where, you guys were just like, "There's no way. That's ridiculous." And Ashley, you're ridiculous. And
I think I was the biggest no way. I don't know if Blaine. I mean, Blaine came along, but I was like, no. There's no way. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't advocate for it in any way. I don't in any way imagine I have that sort of pull. But yeah, I was absolutely blown away to see it. So we'll see how it produces. Yeah,
and I'll make some comments about that. I'm sure others, of course, are watching that game. And so, Chanyo, feel free to put some of your comments in chat. But please do keep in mind, I made a mention of this in the Twitter post. The episode that we had last week came before everything got added. So, as is the usual fun of doing this episode on the Monday after games have ended, when it's still very much just trying to sift through all the fallout, that was not information that we knew, and we're just kind of taking our best shot at where some of these players were going to be. So definitely a surprise. It was definitely not a great fantasy option, but is something that we will talk about going forward. So let's just get right into talking about some of our expectation versus reality from this round 22. And for me, I felt like I had a lot of fail here. I ended the round with 84 points, just a mixed bag of people in general. I did have both Coronel and Tolkien on my bench. At one point I had 3 New York Red Bulls on my bench. We ended up putting in Barrial at the last moment just to see what might happen there. So he stayed there. I also had a Minnesota forward, which I did not like. So I actually added in, I had factored in 2 players for my switcheroo, and I did not like any of the options with Barrial's 1 and my 2 points coming from Minnesota. And so I just threw in Brian White and got 4 points out of that. So that was better than anybody from my bench. So I was pleased with that little last minute substitution. And Larea did not come in for me at all. Neither did Reynoso or Acosta, but everyone else was okay. My last minute addition, thanks to Ashley, thank you much again, was I had not seen the lineup and did not realize that Gold was not starting. Who was my captain for the round, which Ashley gave me the heads up, and literally the text was, "You've got 5 minutes." And so I threw in Almada and gave him the captain, and he was like one of my highest scoring players. So I could have done worse, but 84 points, not a fantastic round. 319 on the week, 81 overall. So kind of a rough re-entry to fantasy, but it was a difficult round. I have a few expectations and realities here. Of course, I had to talk about the Columbus Cincinnati Hell's Real Derby. It is Derby whenever I'm talking about it, and I expected so much more from Cincinnati in this game, but the reality was like, yeah, the lack of our starting defense options and solid depth really took its toll, I think, in this game. And I won't put it all that way. Columbus came out and just outplayed us at every moment of the game. Some amazing performances by Celentano kept it at 2-3-0. Felt super bad about that last goal, but he was definitely one of the standout points for Cincinnati to keep it as low as it was at times with some fantastic shots. So credit there. But yeah, just the lack of depth really, really hurt. So what I was really looking for in this game, though, was how Columbus was going to look without Zella, how that playmaker spot was going to work, and how Rossi might factor in to that and what that fantasy potential was. So for me, Rossi is not a like-for-like swap with Zella, but I don't think any of us thought that he was going to be in that role. So he played a little over 30 minutes in this game, and he did start generating some good attacking numbers. He had 2 shots. I think he had 1 foul generated. He had a handful of passes, but it's really those shot numbers that you were looking at. So he is generating, and he has dangerous shot generation. So he was generating some of those chances. I'm just not sure if his value is going to be as high as we had Vela if he's not on set plays and if he's not playing as a playmaker, because I'm probably going to want to go with Cucho over Rossi most of these times right there. So even in that midfield spot where he has the option to get some clean sheet bonuses, I'm just not sure how tempting of fantasy value he is. I'm actually more interested in seeing a little bit more from Aiden Morris and how maybe he plays in this next match for Columbus, because he's had some point generation in the past, and if he becomes a bit more consistent in some of that playmaker role, his value is really low and could be a good addition there. But they still have other options there in the midfield that are working, so it's just going to be interesting to see how it lines up over there. For me, Columbus is still very much a 2-player team, with that being Gressel and Cucho, though. So, and going to chat real quick just to check to see what Chanjo said, who is a Columbus fan. So leaning to him to see what his thoughts, and he agrees. So nothing really different to see there. But yeah, that was my take on him in that game. Super disappointed, and we'll see what happens. Some of the big players for Cincinnati did come out at the end of the game because of getting ready for Open Cup, so we shall see what happens. Next, I want to quickly touch on New York City FC versus Minnesota, because I know a lot of us picked up some of these Minnesota players hoping that there would be some good production even on the road against New York City because of some of the value and the production that we expect from players like Reynoso, which did not happen. Yeah. So I expected more from those big players, and the reality was they didn't perform. Road is tough. City Field is tough, and it hurt. At least it hurt me. It hurt a lot of us with their fantasy points there. The other expectation was Maxi Morales started, and I know people had kind of hyped this up. We had a little conversation last week of should we add him.
Did you see his cute old man face in the lineup graphic, though?
I did see old man Maxi's face.
Oh, it just crushed me. I was like, no new number, new gray. It's not even, is he the same guy? I don't know.
No. Well, it depends on what year we're looking at for is he the same guy. Fantasy-wise, for me, he is still the same guy as he was when he left the league. And that was not a Maxi that I was super into adding to my team for fantasy value. So I think he got 5 points for 90 minutes, which is kind of below...
More than Reynoso got.
Which is fair for their result, I would say, but not what you would usually expect from a player quite like that. So not much there for me, and kind of disappointing for Minnesota. But I'm still willing to keep going with Minnesota. It's a coming back, not the greatest matchup on the road. I think there's some other opportunities for them. May not really look as much towards those forwards. I'm going to stick maybe mostly with Reynoso right now, but I think Gregus is back, and he got the goal, so a nice little return there. So another name on the list to put there. And then finally, unless we decide to pick up for Blaine Slack, I'm going to also mention the Toronto-Montreal game, because we did talk about briefly Montreal possibly being a good option on the road this week because of a lot of the defensive woes that Toronto had gone through, and some of the just slump in general they were experiencing, even with scoring. Now, Montreal did come up with the win, so I feel like pointing them out was solid fantasy advice to onto. It's thanks to own goal, one of the all-time greatest scorers in MLS history. But I think it was also very important to see that brace from Bernardeschi. We have Osorio back, who was providing assists, and his quality definitely contributed to some of that point production by Bernardeschi. Not willing to touch the defense in any way, shape, or form, especially with Johnson out. But to me, that maybe makes me willing to look at Bernardeschi as maybe a bench player in the right circumstances. So that was a nice takeaway for Toronto. And then I'm going to butcher the name completely, but they're in Montreal with...
that Midi. He made the All-Star team, the Midi.
Yes.
You don't know who we're talking about, you're not playing.
Chionair, something like that.
Yeah.
He also had a brace. He's been the best offensive producer for Montreal the entire season. Not as consistent either. So I don't know if, again, enough of him as a fantasy standout to be a consistent player to your team, but maybe a decent bench option as well. So a couple of, mostly that game to me was some bench situations, but Toronto seeming like a team right now is as a good bet to bet against for scoring.
Yeah, I think as a group, the three of us have been a little more Insigne and a little less Bernardeschi. But I think through the injuries and the coaching changes and the all of those things, I actually think that Bernardeschi has been the stronger fantasy producer. I might be wrong if we go look through points, but it seems like that at least recently, pre-break and stuff.
Yeah, it's a bit of a reset for them right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had a very long conversation trying to talk my husband out of picking up the Montreal keeper. I feel like I had a brief conversation with Blaine about this too. He wanted Montreal defensively, and last week, and I said, I don't pick defenses in Canada derbies. I'll pick offenses, you know what I mean? I just won't. And so Spencer ended up going Montreal keeper, didn't work out. I actually tried to get a little cheeky, and I threw a Poku on my bench instead of the Minnesota striker. He only got 3 points, and I didn't need him to come in anyways. But with the lineups and stuff, I thought, okay, I want in on this Minnesota or Montreal attack, but I don't want to pick up the midfielder, which in reflection would have been the best one to pick. But yeah, I don't know. Toronto's becoming a really tough team to know what to expect. But I feel the same way about Montreal. So we'll just see how the next few weeks pan out. How consistent those lineups stay. But yeah, they're not exactly two teams I'm dying to get on board with. But if it is, it would be Bernardeschi and the Montreal midfielder, whose name Tyler will spell out for us at some point, but not today.
So how does your team do?
For myself, I got 91 points, which felt like I could have done more. I did end up with Larrea's 1 starting, which was a little frustrating. And then started Reynoso and Lucho. Those were the 2 big disappointments for me, but also got those token points, got the Lowen points. I also had to pivot away from Gald. He was my captain, and I already had Almada. I'd had him all week. I had Brooks Lennon until I set my team for the day as well, but ended up changing him. And so I had to figure out who to captain, and I was going back and forth between Espinoza or Almada, and decided I don't want a heavy pick against my own team, even though I've already picked that player. So I went with the Espinoza captain, which ended up being better by a point, right? He got 8 points, just the goal and the minutes played. So I wasn't too upset with 91. I went all my head-to-heads except for 1. And yeah, just kind of having to pivot, literally walking to the game with my family, looking at my phone, trying to swap Gald out, make sure I message you guys and all those things. So it did pay off. I think, Espinoza was a better captain choice. I wouldn't have captained the players that got the most points on my team. I wouldn't have thought to captain them. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to captain Tolkien. I'm not going to captain Lowen. I should have, but I didn't. So it ended up being a decent choice. Some expectations versus realities on my end. I wasn't able to watch the whole thing because I was going to the Seattle game, but Houston versus Portland. We talked about it. We talked about Hector Herrera. A lot of people picked him up. I saw a couple captain armbands on him on some people. That 5-0 route was shocking. That was the reality, and that was not my expectation. I expected a comfortable win for Houston, maybe not a shutout, but not 5 goals. So unfortunately, for anyone who cares, which is no one here, but between the two of us, that was the last straw, and Cervisi's out now, which Reid and I were talking off air. I don't think that firing will affect fantasy point production too much. I actually feel like it might open Evander up a little bit, to kind of be the player we all thought he would be point production wise, and has only been sporadically.
It's a great call.
But we'll see. So that was a big interesting thing to come out today. And I think we've seen a lot this season, kind of that new coach or old coach gone productivity. So just looking at Portland and trying to figure out where that might come from, I think will be interesting for point production. So I'm definitely going to pique my interest and pay attention a little bit for their next couple games. Another expectation versus reality for me was St. Louis and Austin. We talked about this a little bit. I expected St. Louis to get a shutout. I think a lot of us were talking Berkey or Parker. I did not expect Lowen to bounce back that much. 3 assists is a lot. I was happy to see him healthy. I expected him to contribute, but 15 points was a great reality. There was no shutout, but there was 9 goals in that game. It was bananas. If you haven't watched the highlights, Big Sam's 2 goals were crazy. Gionacini's goals were good. It was a goal fest. Like some of those goals were bad defense, but a lot of those goals were just pretty. So that was definitely something to take away. And then last and most least, Seattle versus Atlanta. I honestly expected goals from both. I don't really know that I thought that Seattle would win. I was never on like a Yamar defensive train. I was never on a Seattle midi or striker train for this week. I did not expect Gigi to do so well. He was amazing in that game, and really showed what he can do, and on set pieces and things like that. I was really impressed by him. Almada and Brooks also really showed out for that game, which was definitely something we expect when we pick them up in fantasy, but it wasn't really fun to see in person. So I honestly think, because I was talking through this with my husband this morning, there is not a game left on the Seattle schedule that, unless there's some sort of a change, that I want to pick up a player in fantasy for Seattle. Maybe if it's like you're stuck with a keeperoo situation, but there's so little point production across the board from these guys right now. There's no goals coming in. When they are, it's not consistent from who. The midfield's not producing. The defense isn't keeping shutouts. I don't think there's a matchup left that I am going to end up being, you should pick Seattle up for this reason. They just look so bad. And I kind of hoped when coming back from the break, there would be some sort of a restructure, but the names that we think of, people are talking about, oh, should I replace Gald with Ladero? And if anybody had asked me that, I would have said, absolutely not. I don't care that he scored a free kick in Leagues Cup. He is not producing anything. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm ready to say bet against, right? I'm not quite sure that I'm there yet. But I don't think I can bet on him, Reid, and I've never been in that position. That's new. How did you get through it? Maybe you can give me some notes off air. But, yeah.
We shall see. It was easier for me starting out when I just had such low expectations coming in. Like, you've gone from the high down to the low. And you forget, when Cincinnati first came into the league, I was sitting next to people in the stands where they were saying, we're going to redefine how this works. We're going to take it by storm. Open, USL. And I was just like, you guys have no idea what you're in for. Like, this is not how you build a team in MLS. So, like, I was grounded. Like, everybody else was like, yes. And I was like, no. Nope.
No.
I'm
Yeah.
along for the ride at this point, guys. So let's go, and it's fine. A couple of quick little shout outs. Since Blaine was not here, we'll touch on a couple other games just so we kind of get a full roundup. Have to go to the Vancouver San Jose game because usually San Jose is back and forth, giving up goals, scoring goals. Vancouver just had some change up in some of their players. Did not score at all. So San Jose got the clean sheet, and of course, Christian Espinoza came away with the goal, assisted by Abobasi. We've talked before about Cade Cowell's impact on him. He was in this game 73 minutes, so that was still there. Maybe transfer rumors around there, so we'll see what the future holds. But Espinoza came away with an 8, pretty solid, which you would expect for such a low-scoring game there. So clearly still should be on your talking points of where you're considering for San Jose on the road or at home. And Vancouver is still just so inconsistent that without Gressel, Gauld's the only one that I was looking to, but without him there, I'm not even sure. And he's not definitely week to week top 5.
I will say I don't know why Richie Laryea was subbed at halftime. I don't know if it was like fitness, reintroduction to the team, injury. I honestly didn't say. I don't see him on Tyler's injury list, so I don't think it was injury. I really did expect him to not fill the Gressel-sized hole, but to like kind of somewhat fill it, right? Vancouver is a better team, I think, in the midfield than Toronto was, and he was doing fairly well there. So, I was a little disappointed to see him subbed. It wasn't really on my radar. I thought it was bold to start him. Like I knew that about myself. Mm-hmm. But I did think that he would do better there than he did. But the scoreline didn't surprise me because Vancouver has been relatively solid defensively, just not as much recently at home. We talked about that too, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to do 2 more real quick. Of course, I mean, Houston Dynamo 5-0. You touched on some of that, but I just wanted to join in and just be like, holy cow. Mm-hmm. That is quite the way to leave. But I just had to add that little bit there. And the last one is Chicago versus Orlando. I know we had talked about Shihos maybe being one of our options. Game updated, he was on a yellow card suspension that we had missed on Monday before that happened. So that's, again, just what happens sometimes when coming back from that Leagues Cup break. But not a great showing from Chicago at all. So maybe that coaching transition bump is starting to wane. Orlando came in there. Torres, the main player, one of the 2 usual ones that we're looking at from Orlando, had the expected points that you would see there. And the points from Chicago came from defenders still. So Shaqiri and others right there not producing like people had hoped. And so still just a lot of questions around there with that Chicago team. But Orlando still has some fight to them. Is there anything else, Ashley, that we've missed? Wanting to go to chat real quick?
I don't think so. None of like real fantasy importance from last week. I don't think, the dream team was very interesting, right? Gioacchini, Baird, Tanner Beeson, those aren't names that we're talking about very often. Those are kind of one-offs. But Gigi, Aiden Morris, Lovin, Chonier, I think we did it. Tolkien, Lennon, those are all people that we talk about on a pretty consistent basis. So I think we covered most of the recap.
Excellent. All right. Well, then we are going to move on to our housekeeping section coming up right after this. Let's see here.
I didn't notice your beard either.
Yeah, well, people just don't. I'm trying to see if I can. Let's see here. I'll show you all what I was doing real quick. Once I remember my password. We had an event around here. It's called Pops in the Park, and it's where they have some music at a park. And my wife's uncle is the MC of the event, so he always gets a table, and we go and check it out every year. And my son went, and they do a theme, and so the theme this round was let's see here. Oh my God, I gotta confirm to get into. Yes, it's me, Facebook. Thank you. Was 80s. It was an 80s theme, so my wife wanted us to go in theme, and it involved me shaving for the costume. So We shall see. Like, approve. Yes, this is me, Facebook. Login approved. Are you not going to do this, Facebook? Am I going to have to just use my phone? My wife got hacked recently on Facebook, and so I too changed my passwords. And
I can find it. It's in our Twitter. It's in our group chat.
I don't know if did I share it? Well, here, I'll just do it here on the phone, so it'll not be quite the effect that I was going for you all, but yes, we went as 80s icons, and so there's me,
you did.
Tom Selleck, right there.
I got it right away.
And then there's my wife as Princess Di. So and baby Roo was Pac-Man, so that's what he was. But yes, that's why I shaved for that. And I had 2 comments, and I did this, and they said, "How did you do the mustache?" And I was like, "I just shaved everything else." I don't know why that's so hard, but
yeah.
But that was it. Okay, but enough of that. I've got the social ready right here as well. So posting that again, Phil, please do share the social, and we're going to get to our housekeeping section right after I retweet right there. I don't think anybody assumes that 2 different people run the MLSFI and my account. That's just the way it is. Yeah. So, all right, here we go. All right, and welcome back to our housekeeping for round 23. We're going to skip the housekeeping update since Blaine's not here to give some of his, but people are doing fantastic in the league. So excited with our Pro Rel this year. Looking forward to doing it next year. We're going to move right into the round 23 details. So this one starts on Wednesday, and this is the rescheduled LAFC versus Colorado game. So everything starts Wednesday, August 23rd at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so the next rounds, people are going to wait. And Saturday, August 26th at 7:30, we have our normal slate of games, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30. And then also we have one game on Sunday, August 27th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that is Minnesota versus Seattle. What all this means is we have one team on a double game week, and that is LAFC going up against Colorado on Wednesday, and then on the road to Charlotte on Saturday, and 0 teams are on a bye, so everyone is playing. If you're looking for switcheroo options, of course, you can head over to the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord and find lists of players who are still in the game but are no longer available. Or you can look at some of those Minnesota and Seattle players, probably going to be Seattle players, that you are going to be able to have on your team, and you will absolutely know will not be playing. And so you can easily preview your bench to know who you want to switch in and switch out. And then just check up with that game to make sure they're not in the starting 18. So easy peasy.
I could be wrong. I think Seattle is not great with defenders. If you go a defender, like a defender scrub.
Sure.
I think Arriaga is the only one that is safe to not come in because he's been injured, but I know he's working his way back. Seattle just doesn't have a lot of defenders on their roster, right?
Yeah.
So it's a dicey pick there for scrubs. But Minnesota,
Portland, Vancouver as well on Saturday.
I think Minnesota might also be better because all 4 of Seattle's forwards come in, and you're definitely not going to scrub a midi. So
yeah, but you have options. This is going to be a really good round for some of your switcheroos and autoroos because we do have this spread, so you'll be able to preview points. Especially with LAFC, you do have the ability to preview 2 games worth of points before making some decisions about some of those later games. So definitely be sure to factor that into any of the strategy that you have for this round. In addition to the double game week and the Wednesday start, we have 4 teams that are playing in U.S. Open Cup semifinal games on Wednesday as well. My FC Cincinnati versus Miami, as well as Houston versus RSL. I already mentioned that Cincinnati did a little bit of rotation near the end of their Hell is Real Derby game, very likely because they're prepping for this Miami game, but also look to see what happens with Houston, Real Salt Lake, and Miami as well, because they've got more games coming down the pipeline, especially Miami with Messi, who has some games coming up next week as well. So definitely going to be thinking about legs and rotations for all of those teams as they're coming in. We do have a quick update, as always. Thank you to Tyler for providing us with some injuries and suspensions. Michael Bradley returns for the first time since week 7. Also, I believe Miazga should be coming back for Cincinnati in their game. I believe he was on a yellow card suspension last week, but you can check out an Open Cup and see how he looks if you're thinking about something there. But that's another one I wanted to point out because Cincinnati definitely hurting with their defense this week. Yellow card accumulations. We have Washington from Nashville who got a red. We have Picolet from Nashville who got a red. We have Nwobodo from Cincinnati who is on yellow card accumulation. Kyle Duncan from Red Bulls. Petrita from TFC. Pineda from Chicago. And Blom from St. Louis. All of those are yellow card accumulations or red cards. Not going to be there. And then some big name injuries. We have Van Zier with Red Bulls. And I'm so sorry, Christian. Halongway?
I think it's Halongway. I think we talked.
We'll go with that. From Minnesota, one of the forward options there up on the right side, right wing, I believe, right there. So not a lot to have to worry about. So just check the lineups, check the updates. You can see the information also on MLS. That did update late last week. Not unusual. But some of the changes did come in, I know, after our show. So if you want to be up to date, be sure to head over to MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord and then head over to our Discord channel. It's free, it's fun, and you can go down to the fantasy tools section in our main fantasy chat. And right there, we have the mega reference, which is where we get a lot of this information about call-ups and injuries and suspensions and players who are no longer in MLS but still in the game. So the super safe switcheroos at all those positions, you can go in there and check it all out to just help with your fantasy general planning, and it's all for free. Again, fantasy tools over at the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord channel. Checking up, yes. I see some people trying to tell me how to pronounce this, but it just is what it is, guys. It is what it is. We either have to have Tyler come on there to say it, or we make Blaine do it. Otherwise, you'll hear me skip through some of this, and don't at me because it's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. That's part of it now. So yeah, that's the updates that we have. But I know what you guys have really come for is to hear some of our early previews about players for round 23, and we're going to get into that coming up next. Now I have to go prep. Still, why did you not log me in, Facebook? Text me a login code, Facebook, please. There we go. Let's see if I can get into this puppy now. All right, there we go. Now I could have shared you the picture that I shared with you on my phone, but no need to now. That was going to bother me. All right, let's get here. Post with talking about players. I miss my little macro so much. Elon Musk impacting our fantasy content. It's all his fault. And retweet. There we go. All right, there's a social media for that. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, no, that's part of the fun, Black and Red, is I know people don't even necessarily want to tell me how to say it correctly because part of it is just seeing me mess it up. And, you know, I like to think that other people who may just be starting to play this game, they're not going to know how to pronounce these names either. So if I'm like, yeah, this name, they're like, oh, I know who that guy is. That guy. I get it. I'm right with you. All right, let's talk about players.
Let's do it.
All right, welcome back to our final segment of the show, talking about our early player targets for round 23. Starting as always with keepers and defenders. Ashley, who are you looking at?
I'll tell you who I'm not looking at. Jordy Petrovic, because going to Chelsea. That's confirmed. If Fabrizio says it, it's happening. So New England Revolution defense taking a hit. Great for him, not for fantasy. The keeper I am considering just for the 2 bites at the apple, and because the keeper on the single game week I wanted the most I can see both of the LAFC games before he plays. So I'm going to do McCarthy to DSC. I think that like I said, I think St. Clair has the best shutout possibility. That game's on a Sunday. I can see any other keeper that I want to before his game. So that's definitely who I'm going with, the keeperoo. For defenders, some of the players I put in first were Gressel and Lennon and Palacios. I'm normally more of a Hollingshead, but I'm going mob mentality this week. I'm not sure why. I normally fight it. I actually don't think I've picked Palacios up all year. I always go Hollingshead. I am nervous about Barreal because of Open Cup. I think if he is starting, I'll take him because I like that matchup at home against NYCFC. They won't have had any travel, right? Because Inter Miami's coming to you. So definitely going to pay attention to it before putting him in. But I think that's definitely a consideration. And then my other two outlier defenders are any Minnesota player, probably Boxall. And I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I know I'm going to get a lot of shit, but Jordi Alba. If I'm considering Barreal, I'm considering Jordi Alba. He is probably the second player I'm most interested in fantasy for Miami, coming out of what I've watched in Leagues Cup. So I don't know how they're going to rest. I don't know how they're going to rotate. Miami is not a very deep team. So I will get to this a little bit more in middies because I have a mini rant against people who aren't picking up Messi this week. But those two are kind of who I'm considering to fill that last spot. Between the other four. So, and somewhere in there I need to find a scrub, but I'll get to that when I need to.
Yeah, we're on the same page when it comes to keepers. I mean, that is just the ideal keeper pairing for any kind of switcheroo. You will absolutely be able to see. And again, for those of you still learning this, start with McCarthy on your bench. That will let you preview both of his points before deciding if you want him to come into your team. And if you're going to do it that way, the 7:30 game, which is what LA has on the road to Charlotte, ends around 9:30. So you could theoretically go with RSL versus Houston Dynamo. I don't know why you would want to do that. I think both of those teams have the potential to score. Both of them are playing an Open Cup on the weekend, so who knows what rotation is going to have. The safer games during Saturday are, of course, LA versus Chicago and Portland versus Vancouver. Maybe the LA game could offer you some options, but I think the chalk keeper that you're going to see is going to be McCarthy to Dane St. Clair. That's what it's going to be. Not bad matchups at all. You could look at some of the 8:30 games if you wanted to, if you don't need to see all of. If they do horrible, if LAFC does horrible against Colorado, then you're opened up. You have that option. You could see if you want to even risk the Charlotte game and maybe go with something else on this list. But I feel like LAFC to Minnesota is a solid, good pick, regardless if it's chalk or not. I think it's a good pick for this fantasy round. I'm also on a pretty much the same page as you are with defenders. I'd add Orlon with Palacios if you're looking at the LA options. I'm not sure if there's going to be any rotations because of this, but I do like center backs for this match, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, one of those players could be there. Alba, also a player that I quickly added to my team as well. I've seen some of his production during Leagues Cup that I find appealing, but I'm looking at the tired legs as well for this Open Cup. So much for this Open Cup. It's just going to have to wait and see what these lineups look like. For the other options, yeah, I'm considering Barreal as well, but I'll also throw Araujo on that. Araujo from defender for LA. He's had some good bonus point production during the season. So I think, did I get it right? Let me look. See, I didn't even Galaxy. Yeah. Did I get the name right?
No. He plays for Barcelona now. Who are you talking about?
Did he leave?
He left a while ago, yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm very positive. This is a professional environment.
This is a professional environment. Well, yeah, we'll see. I must be thinking of
Julian Araujo.
Who am I thinking of?
Plays for Barcelona.
I'm not even gonna cut this.
Neil? Are you thinking of Jaden Neal? Or Edwards?
I don't know.
Those are the
there's
only names that would leave.
in my head I have an LA Galaxy player who's producing bonus points. So I'm just gonna have to look it up, and I'll come back to you when I get it. But
Okay, it's Arujo of years past for sure, but he wasn't in the game all year,
it's been
so that's okay.
oh well. I'm gonna look it up and I'm gonna figure out who I was thinking of because I was like, yeah, this is who it is. Maybe I just had an '80s moment. That's what it was. We'll see. Help me chat. Help me chat. Who was I thinking of?
It's gotta be Neil.
It probably is. It probably is.
I don't know what chat thinks, but that's what I think.
We'll see. It probably was. Otherwise, you could maybe even go with Philadelphia this week against DC. They didn't have a strong showing. That could be a nice road. I don't want to touch New England, but I don't like Montreal's defense enough to think that maybe someone like Heel couldn't score. Sure. Not sure about that defense. I worry about Messi for Red Bulls. Otherwise, Red Bull tends to be a keeperoo that I like. But that lineup, if there is some rotation with Miami, then I think Red Bulls do become a tempting option that you could even consider for a bench play as a defender.
Yeah, I don't know. I've watched Messi sub on a score, unlike any human being that's ever existed. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Red Bull's defense has been pretty solid, but I've got too much. Instead of rose-colored glasses, it's Miami pink-colored glasses, but I'm not picking up the defense against Miami right now.
That's fair. No, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just kind of I'm looking through the lineups, looking at some of the options, like we talked about in our filler episodes. Just our first pass as we're going through and looking at some of these teams. These are what's coming through the mind. So, but that's where I'm at. I think you do have some other options, but we'll see. Some of the chalk definitely going to be there. Yeah. Who are you looking at for midfield?
I wanted to point this out at the top of the picks, and I forgot. I'm sorry that there's only 2 more rounds for this Champions League window.
Oh,
so
call out.
when you're looking at picks, I'm gonna say chalk is not your friend. If you're someone like me who's on the bubble, I am close enough to touch, but not close enough to be in. For this last window, I think it's really important that you kind of the picks that I'm giving here might not always go along with what I'm saying, but if you go all chalk, I don't think you'll get into fantasy. It says round 24.
Sorry. No, I was looking at my bonus points stuff. It was Neil, but I swear there was somebody else that like that's like not the picture I had in my head when I was thinking of this guy. So anyway.
Sure. But yeah, 2 rounds left, including this upcoming one. So make sure that you're keeping that in the back of your mind if you have yet to get in and you're close. For midfielders, again, considering rotation, I'm looking at Lucho. I'm looking at Reynoso, even though he just let a lot of us down this past week. I think he plays well against Seattle. I think that will be a good home game for him for sure. I like Almada, and I hear it, but I am not here for this Messi not getting picked talk. If you want to put him on your bench because he might not start, fine. But there is not a week I won't pick him up unless I know that he's not playing. So yes, I'll have a fallback for him. But it's been like an actual conversation that I've seen that people are intentionally not picking him up. And I think that that's just ludicrous. So he's on my team. I also might bench him just in case I have to pivot, but it's a 4:30 game or 7:30 for most of you. It's a 4:30 game. So if he's not starting, you just pick any of the other middies that are kicking off at 4:30, and there's many of them, that you can pivot to. So I don't know. I don't get it. If he's on the bench, I might put him on my bench and still keep him, because I think that there's a lot that he could do. A lot of it depends on Open Cup, how Open Cup goes. Do they sub him? Do they not? We watched part of his press conference, and he doesn't seem like he wants to rest. He doesn't seem like he wants to not play on turf. The dude's here to play. So he's on my team this week, and I think if you're talking yourself out of it, you're overthinking it. But the 5th spot on my team in midfield, I've kind of gone back and forth about. Ricky Puig, I'm definitely considering that matchup. I like this week. Galaxy haven't been the most consistent, but Chicago is not good defensively, especially away from home. I think that you could look at Diego Rossi if he's starting. How is he fitting in? I kind of agree with your point earlier, though. Is Aiden Morris the better midfielder with Zella gone? I think he might be. But I remember a lot of the Diego Rossi of old, and yes, he wasn't on set pieces then. He wasn't Vela was, so he was still a huge point producer without being the Zella. So I'm interested to see what that looks like against Toronto. And then Mukhtar and also Mukhtar and also Evander have been kind of on my outer watch. But Evander's at home, fill in coach against a Cascadia team. How does he step up? Mukhtar's on the road against a decent team. How does he play? So that last spot for me is kind of in flux, but the first four are definitely locked in.
Just putting in a chat. I was just putting in a chat right here because you mentioned Mukhtar, and I haven't seen Christian say something about him being on the road just yet, because I feel like that's like the bat signal for him in chat.
Sure.
Again, we're on the same wavelength right here. Messi, Ray, and Almada were three of the first players that I threw into my team. As chat pointed out, there could be something to be said about New York Red Bulls having some success at shutting down playmakers during the season, but it's Messi, and he has been helping others on that team also open up. So if you spend too much time focusing on him, what's that going to do to the team? But I agree. This is the first week we have the option to put Messi in our team. I want to see what happens with Open Cup and just to see what that lineup looks like. I don't know if I have him on the team if he's not in the starting, but we'll see what happens. But I do think, definitely worth the call out. The Rossi conversation is good, and I'm curious where people end up sitting with that one, because it is Toronto, as you pointed out. They did ship goals last week. Their defense is very suspect, goalkeeping suspect, and so if it's going to be handing out goals, I think Rossi's going to be up to have his name in the pot for doing that. He did have some dangerous chances, and it won't always just be Cucho. So, but we'll see. But on the long, I don't know if that's it. Mukhtar doesn't make my list. I think I definitely do like Lucho over that, especially since he's likely still going to be angry from that Columbus game, potentially also angry from Open Cup as well. But I'm just very wary of Mukhtar on the road. I think I'd rather go with some other offensive choices we can mention in a second. But I mentioned it earlier, I'd be game to entertain even a heel before that against Montreal.
Is he fit, though? Because I just haven't seen it. I'm not saying he's not, but he didn't play in their last Leagues Cup game, and he wasn't in the 18 because he was hurt. Mm-hmm. So I just haven't done my due diligence to make sure that he's 90 minutes fit.
There's some time. We can see what happens. But I'd be interested if he's in the lineup of entertaining him before I would really be leaning towards Mukhtar right there. And then I guess the other name that I do have also on my list worth mentioning is Ruiz over with RSL against Houston. He's had a lot of form, a lot of success with them at that position, and so I think he's worth a thought, maybe a fifth spot on your team for some of these options right here. Going to chat real quick. Anything popping up there? Nothing. I'd like the Evander shout out. I think that would be a very interesting bench play this week, because we did have so much hope in him at the beginning of the season, and it's just not panned out. And maybe it's been coaching. Maybe it's been coaching all this time. But let's talk about forwards. Who do you have, Ashley?
This one was a little easier for me. Bouanga Cucho right out of the gate. The third spot has been a little bit of a back and forth. I know it sounds like I'm going full train, and I kind of am, but Yosef is definitely someone I considered as a bench striker. I might use that third striker spot as a scrub. I think Severino for RSL is another decent shot, but they also have Open Cup midweek, so what does that look like for them? So yeah, it's Bouanga, Cucho, and then kind of up in the air after that.
Chad was just saying that Ruiz is out for the season, which another one that I missed. I am not having a good week apparently for catching this thing. Just
Reid's on Reddit this week, you guys. Sorry.
I'm on Reddit this week as MLS Fantasy
On
Intern.
Reddit this week.
That's what it is. Fantasy Intern here. Defenders, yeah, the chalk this week definitely going to be Boanga and Cucho. After that, it definitely changes. Surge is one that I did think you could potentially go
I like
with.
him.
Yep, I like him a lot. I am not huge on the Atlanta defense, and so while Mukhtar may be kind of rough on the road, I'd be willing to maybe take a shot at him. Maybe this is a round where you're going to go with 3 forwards. I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but I think I would throw his name on that list as well. After that, I really don't know where you would go. I think the forward options are kind of limited this week for some quality ones right there.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap everything else up with captains. Get through this one quick. So who is your captain right now, Ashley?
I think right now it's on Boanga because I think he'll play both, and I like him the most of the LAFC players. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for captains this week. I will admit that I'm not going to... I want to captain Messi so bad just because it's my first opportunity to do it, but I don't think it's the right time to do it at all. So I don't know. Maybe for some reason he doesn't start an Open Cup. I don't know. Maybe there's a world where you could, but it's Boanga for me. And I think that, like I said, I think there's other options that make sense and are reasonable, but that's the one that's the most practical to me at the moment.
So I'm going to give myself a little break about Reese. He did just have knee surgery. He is out. That was just updated 8 days ago, and I was not paying attention to RSL because they were not playing last week, and he still has a green dot. So I didn't even look up for injury news there. So I'm going to give myself a pass, even though others may not. But it is what it is. Captain's really tough for me this week. Yep. Again, Boanga is the chalk. It is the easy go-to because the double game right there. The conversation, as usual, talks about rotation. What's that going to look like? But those matches just seem so good. Mm-hmm. Going against Colorado at home and then on the road to Charlotte, which is definitely they can be kind of tough. They're not just a run them over team.
Yeah.
But I still like it. They've given up a lot of goals as well. So this it's 2 good matchups. I don't think he doesn't play in one of them. I don't know if he goes 90 in both, but I think we're looking at over 120 for sure for these 2 games. And so I like it a lot. I don't care for their midfield, which would be normally where I would go for a double like this. So that would be it. But the question comes down to, do you go with double LAFC over Messi?
If you can tell me, that's the thing, right? So if you're going to captain Boanga, you got to do it on Wednesday. If you can tell me in your crystal ball that Messi's starting at Red Bull, I'm going to captain Messi. But then I have to pivot to another single game week player, and no one feels as confident to me single game week as Boanga does.
I mean, and the big element that people are talking about in chat is that it's cross-country travel for LA after the home game.
You know what? Danny Boanga hopped off a plane from Gabon and came in as a sub and scored. Travel does not affect that man. That's not a thing. I understand that it's a thing, like, statistically, like, when we look at matchups, but, like, travel and Denis Boanga don't matter. Like, he did the same thing when he came home from a different tournament. He's played that day. Like, he got home the night before, and he started the next day, and he scored. So if we're talking about any other LAFC player, I'm like, yeah, maybe, I don't know. I'm not loading up on LAFC this week. I don't think. Maybe I will. But I don't know. I think that going to Charlotte, to me, does not impact the Boanga-ness of it all, if that makes sense.
I love it. The Boanga-ness. I love it. No, it seemed like you had some opinions about that one, so I wanted to set you up for it and did not disappoint. Yeah. You've had some strong opinions tonight that have been fantastic. So good quality content right here. So that's what it's going to be. I think it's pretty much going to come down to Boanga as the number 1 captain and see if anyone wants to go for the differential right there. The captain's poll will be interesting to see what we have happen in the Discord rankings this week. So we'll see as we get closer to, I guess, Wednesday. So we'll see what happens. Maybe we just still put it out on Friday. That's far too much time. I'm sorry, Christian. We don't have to do it by Wednesday. It'll be there. It'll just be what it is, and we'll go from there. So we'll do an informal poll on Twitter and see what happens. Well, that's all that we have for the show tonight. So happy everyone could join us as we're kind of getting back into the flow, getting back into the normal lineup for what we talk about each week. And so let's round up everything with plugs. Ashley.
Gosh, I don't really have one this week. I didn't come ready.
Not even for the World Cup?
I'm not gonna shop it. No, I'm so sad.
Okay, that's fine.
Man,
Okay.
I don't mean it.
Brooks Lennon.
Brooks Lennon. My plug is Brooks Lennon. But even that I don't really believe because he beat my team's ass and I care more about my team than
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
A long time ago, though. Told me.
There we go. For me, as usual, MLSFantasyBoss.com and the MLS Fantasy Discord, the premier community for MLS Fantasy game. I just made that up. It's the best community. It's definitely the largest community, and it's one that if you're interested in this game, you should come in and be a part of. If you're here, you probably already are. But if you have friends who are not, let them know. Don't hold the secrets for yourself. We are far enough into the season that you don't have to worry about that anymore. Let your friends know. Come on out. Be a part of this community. It is so much fun. MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord. And also all of the great content that comes from there. Skylar, when he's able, because he's got a big person job now, to have his differentials. To be fair, last week there was not a lot to be differential about because of the limited number of teams. So a little bit of an ask for him there. But Christian, with his dutifully posting our player polls as well, a very popular part that we have to see how we compare to Skylar's rankings as well. So it's so much fun. Multiple ways for you to get involved with this community. Please do come on out and check it out because it's just great to continue to see it grow. But we'll be back with you next week with how everything goes, and maybe we'll have Blaine joining us. But until then, as always, good luck.
Next week's a real double, too.
It's a for real.